For a follow-up segment on our coverage of Senator Gary Stubblefield's bill that would ban men from dressing up like women and then prancing around in front of young children at public venues. It passed out of the committee last week, and we got to speak to Senator Stubblefield immediately after. But then it was debated on the full, in front of the full Senate on the floor yesterday, and it was quite the debate. The bill passed with 29 yeas and 6 nays. For those of you keeping count, there are 29 Republicans in the Senate chamber in Arkansas and 6 Democrats. So it was a party line vote, and we have the archive footage, and we're going to take a listen. Republicans fighting to save children from perverts. Let's go to the screen and we'll take a listen. This is Senator Gary Stubblefield up first, presenting his bill. This was on Tuesday of this week, trying to save children.
Colleagues, I've been here 12 years, and every day, every Thursday when we leave, usually on Thursdays, I get home and the first thing I do is go in, help my wife unload everything because my wife comes with me every trip, and I hit my voicemail, which is always full. Well, this last week, when I hit my voicemail, I heard some of the most vulgar, obscene language that I didn't even know exist. I really didn't. I've never heard these words put together before by a group of people that want other people to bring their children and put them in front of them so they can read a book. And I thought, I can't think of any redeeming quality, anything good that can come from taking children and putting them in front of a bunch of grown men who are dressed like women. I thought and I thought and I thought. I couldn't come up with anything.
Imagine that.
This bill is really very simple. It reclassifies what a drag performance is. And let me just go through it real briefly with you. And by the way, I have also a testimony of a Miss Kitty Demure, who is a drag queen. Let me read to you what she says. I have absolutely no idea why you would want to influence your child. Would you want a stripper or porn star to influence your child? It makes no sense at all. I have no idea why you would want drag queens to read books to your children. I have no idea. What in the heck has a drag queen ever done to have you have so much respect for them and admire them so much that putting on makeup, jumping up on the floor, writhing around on stage is going to help your child?
So, I mean, a couple of things. Can you believe that we live in a day and age where this even has to be said out loud? These are now the arguments. These are now our arguments, Man, and I have to admit, a long time ago, I had social issue fatigue. Not anymore. Not anymore. Because you know what? You know what the truth of the matter is here? And we're going to get back to the audio here in just a second because you're going to need to hear Senator Stephanie Flowers. The truth of the matter here is I don't know how you're going to solve complicated, and this is probably more at the federal level at this point because, again, I mean, you're still going to run into issues within the Republican Party, but because you have these supermajorities. But, those of you who want to solve a smaller moral problem like, let's say, the national debt, or we're spending more money than we have. Yes, that can, moral problems shouldn't do that. Shouldn't go into debt. Shouldn't. But if you're going to solve that problem when you're sitting across a table and you're negotiating with somebody who believes that drag queens should have full access to your children at public venues, or parents should be able to subject their child to sexualized behavior and the gyrations, and I mean, if you think you're going to solve tax policy when this is going on and we have to negotiate, I just at this point, I don't think it's possible. I do not think it is possible until we take these depraved ideas and we defeat them, honestly. But anyway, back to this. Back to Senator Gary Stubblefield from Tuesday.
And I understand that you want to look like with you are with it, that you're cool, that you're woke, that you're not a Nazi, that you're not a homophobe, whatever it may be. But you can raise your child to be a normal, regular, everyday child without including them in gay, sexual things. That wasn't written by me. That was written by a drag queen. We live in a world today that is so unlike the world that I grew up in that it's hard for me to even take it in. We're seeing things today that no one could have predicted 40, 50 years ago. Morally, we're going down a funnel. It's like Thomas Jefferson said. He said, America will never be taken over from the outside. We'll be taken over from the inside.
You know, and I don't even think, I get Senator Stubblefield's strategy here, reading a drag queen in his own words saying, hey, this is too far for me. I'm a drag queen with standards, which is my previous point. But we all know, at this point, come on, you don't really have to have the drag queen's testimony in order to prove your point, right? It's just a thought.
Like what happened to Rome and many other countries, from moral decay from the inside. California currently has 67 different, you can identify in California, if you're a child, 67 different genders. Now, when you take one of these little kids and put them in front of drag queens that are men dressed up like women, do you think that helps them or confuses them in regard to their own gender? We have a lot of kids today that are so confused about their own gender that some of them are having to go to psychologists and get help. And yet that's exactly what's taking place all over this country.
All right, so here in just a second, and you know what, we're going to go ahead and skip to this if we can. So that's Senator Stubblefield there, and then Senator Stephanie Flowers. She rises for a question, and they decide, or Stephanie Flowers has a problem with in the committee last week when the bill passed. Senator Stubblefield cited a verse in Deuteronomy saying that it's an abomination for men to wear women's clothes. Okay, so Senator Flowers takes issue with this, and and then there's a debate over the Old and New Testament and antinomianism. Anyway, this is what it was. Listen.
And thank you for taking my question, Senator Stubblefield. Now you bring God up into this.
Her audio gets better in just a moment.
And,
she has some microphone problems.
That concerns me. And I watched the debate in City County Local last Thursday by way of the internet. Really what concerns me...
Sister Flowers, I apologize, but I'm having trouble hearing.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got this thing on. I was trying to hear down there, and maybe I need to turn it off.
Or maybe you could remove your mask. Maybe that would help us hear you a little bit better.
I watched the debate in City County Local last Thursday, and I was concerned. You brought up God here today. I'm a God-fearing person. In the committee, you identified yourself as a Christian. You cited scripture in the Bible from Deuteronomy 25th verse. I guess you know that's part of the Torah, the Old Testament, Judaic law. And as Christians, We look more to the New Testament. And what concerns me more about this bill, because the New Testament preaches love of all, regardless. What concerns me about this, it appears to me you're trying to put a target on people's backs that are not, according to you, normal. People have been cross-dressing for centuries.
I feel like I have to interject. Yes, people have been cross-dressing. That's why it's in the Bible and it says don't do it. To your point, that's why he cited Deuteronomy. Is saying just because people have always done it. And again, the New Testament is all about love and everything else. No, the truth is we worship the same God. The Christians worship the same God that is in the Old Testament, the New Testament. It's the same being. And so you have to make these passages make sense because they don't contradict one another. You may want them to contradict one another so you don't have to pay attention to what the Word of God says. But you know what? Senator Gary Stubblefield, if any of you were thinking, well, I know New Testament verses that condemn homosexuality, just wait, because so does Senator Gary Stubblefield.
It happened in Europe. They powdered their faces, made them whiter, put on rouge, wore wigs. Even our founding fathers did that. Do you agree with that? Do you believe that Christians believe in the New Testament?
Have you read Romans 1, Senator Flowers?
Do you believe, I'm asking the question.
Romans 1 is in the New Testament.
Senator Stubblefield, if you'll hold off for a minute. Senator Flowers, do you have a specific question about the bill at hand?
What is your question, Senator?
What is the question about the bill that Senator has proposed?
How he relates this to God, and this is sin. You know, when you start citing the Bible and stuff, we're going to all have different opinions about this. And for that community of the LGBTQ, or whoever decides to cross-dress, put on a wig, wear a clothing that is not identical to what you were born as a male or whatever.
Ignoring the issue.
I don't understand the purpose of this. Because we already have laws that prevent lewd, lascivious behavior. So what is your point other than to get national media attention?
I'm not looking for national media attention, Senator Flowers.
Well, would you agree that...
Let me first clarify your first question. Oh. You talked about the Torah in the Old Testament. Romans speaks more about this particular sin in the New Testament than the Torah did in the Old Testament. And as far as dressing, anyone can still put on a robe, they can dress, they can do anywhere they want to go.
But you're targeting people.
No, I'm not targeting anyone.
Yes, you are. But I guess you've answered my question, so I'll sit down and let somebody else ask.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Don't you just love when the dividing lines between the political parties are stark and clear, and I don't know. It just good job, Senate Republicans, for doing this. Thank God for you for standing up and doing the right thing concerning our children. Too many of us, for too long, myself included, in the past, have approached well, I personally disagree with that choice, but that is your right. We, at this point, have seen the fruits of that, and we have been sold a bill of goods that, quite frankly, in the conservative world, has failed to conserve really anything. We have conserved very, very little. And I think people have had enough, and we've got to find a way to get this pendulum to swing back the other way, and not just, of course, I said not just tip our hat to a higher power or to God or to the Christian God of the Bible, but we don't even do that anymore. We don't even do that anymore. As I've said many times, We need strong families. Well, why? I mean, we certainly don't need families that are like, oh yeah, let's take our 5-year-old to a drag show. Well, why do we need strong families? Well, Republican secularists say, well, that's because it's good for society. Well, yeah, but why? Well, we're not supposed to talk religion and politics. The truth is, maybe you should be required to talk religion when you're talking about politics. Because based on what standard is a strong family good? Because it's what God would have for us. Not because we're just going to get the derivatives and the benefits from good, strong families. And this is, in my opinion, that right there, this is the issue of our time. And we have, if we're going to claw our way back up this slippery slope, we got a lot of work to do.